I made a video and put it up a couple of days ago about the friendly Newfoundlander stereotype. That first video, of course, focused on people that came to Newfoundland from somewhere else and what their experience was. And to be perfectly honest, it was a pretty much positive video. It wasn't like a case of, by any means, me guiding anybody towards confirming or denying the stereotype. I just asked a few questions when I interviewed some of these people generally about other things. When the topic of how has your experience in Newfoundland been so far, most of the stuff that was said, with a couple of small sort of soft exceptions, was that the experience that everybody had was more or less positive. Newfoundlanders were friendly and welcoming, more or less, right? My experience being born and raised in Newfoundland was not exactly like that. You can tell from my channel that I love Newfoundland with all of my heart. I love it so much, but the stereotype of the friendly Newfoundlander to me just, didn't really fit holistically, I guess. In the comments for that first video, I received a comment from somebody who I always appreciate comments from this person, the Exile NF. And this one in particular, when I read it, I was like, really, why am I bothering writing a script for this video? I'm just going to use this comment as the basis for my video, because it really hits almost everything that I was hoping to hit with my view on the stereotype of the friendly Newfoundlander. This person actually reached out to me on his own outside of YouTube just to let me know, yeah, I really like your channel, and I realized who it was, and it's somebody that we crossed paths for an extended period of time through mutual friends back at least 20 years ago when I lived in Toronto. I left Toronto 20 years ago, so it was sometime before then. It's kind of interesting how, the friendly Newfoundlander stereotype, I'm not trying to refute it here. I still believe that overall we are friendly overall people, but this person that came back into my life through the YouTube comments is somebody who is essentially a friend from a lifetime ago, right? So I'm not going to call out your name because you seem like you're a little bit of a private guy, but Exile NF, what's up, buddy? But anyway, the comment starts off with this. At the risk of people getting mad at me, I'm going to pull back the curtain a little here. Newfoundlanders are very friendly, especially to tourists. We really want you to like us and to say nice things about us and praise our island and its people. There are so many stories of locals opening up their home and giving tourists the shirt off their back, so to say. But Jimmy down the road, they've known him for 30 years. F him, he's an arsehole. Now this is a great way to start this whole thing off, because you're going to be hard pressed to find anybody who disagrees with that. Newfoundlanders are friendly, I believe that. But the act that we put on for people that are not from Newfoundland is oftentimes just an act. And the way that we know as Newfoundlanders that it's an act is that when we see the way that we treat each other, it can be very different. Now, not to say that Newfoundlanders can't be friendly to each other. Of course they can. But there's an element of friendliness that gets extended to an outsider that just will never be extended to a Newfoundlander unless that Newfoundlander is in some way able to help you with something. Now, you can argue with a lot of things that I'm going to say in this video, but which Newfoundlander who knows is going to argue with that statement? And he continues. Sometimes that kindness to tourists manifests to people wanting to move there. Everything can go well, but as a come from away, you will never be allowed to criticize the island. Hell hath no fury than a Newfoundlander scorned, and you might as well pack up and leave. Now, I am not telling you, you better not say a bad word about Newfoundland, and if you do, you better go. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what the commenter was saying. I'm sure of it. But what he's saying and what I'm agreeing with is that that's the feel. And I've seen it happen where people are run out of town. Maybe not literally, maybe they don't leave, but they're just basically ostracized because they had the nerve to say that the weather sucks in St. John's or something like that. A lot of the stuff that people say is true, not always, and some people can overstep. And the whole idea of the negative stereotypes about Newfoundland, we don't find that funny for the most part. Some people don't care, but for the most part, that's not what this person's talking about. But if you criticize Newfoundland, even in good faith, it can be a problem. And that's when you start to realize that Newfoundlanders may be not as friendly as they seemed initially after you made the decision to move here. And this is the kicker for me. This is the part that by the time I got to this part of the message, I realized like this guy is in my mind. He's saying what my brain is already thinking, right? It says, Newfoundlanders aren't all that nice to each other. There's a real towny-Bayman divide. Sometimes my mainlander wife witnesses firsthand. And for a slightly older generation, a Catholic-Protestant divide. As a Catholic townie, I have a very different lived experience than a Bayman Protestant. I believe that. I did mention in that other video where like if you have an experience in St. John's and you shape your idea about Newfoundland through St. John's, then that's valid, but that experience can be very different than if you were in Gander or Corner Brook, or even much more different again if you're in a small outport community. Whether that comes down to religion these days is probably not going to be the case, but the culture was shaped by religious differences for generations and generations, and communities were largely divided by religions. I graduated high school in either the last year or the second last year of the denominational school system in Newfoundland and Labrador, which means I went to a Catholic high school. And if you're not from Newfoundland, the idea of Catholic schools is very different than it was when I was in school. My mom has told me stuff where like the Catholics did not mix with the Protestants. There wasn't a lot of fighting or animosity on a grand scale, but people just didn't mix, right? Discrimination in those days was along religious lines. So we're talking, a generation before mine, but even in my generation, it was clear to us we were Catholic, they were Protestant, whatever denomination of Protestant they were, and that was made clear. The Bayman Townie thing was a little bit more evident. I know that in Mount Pearl thought, at least when I was a kid, Mount Pearl thought that we were like the cutting edge, the vanguard of Newfoundland. Even more so than like St. John's. St. John's thought of Mount Pearl as Shelbyville, and we were not really like friends, but we were all townies, and townies looked down on Bayman. That's just how it was. Why? We're all Newfoundlanders, and if we go to Ontario or Alberta, they don't care if we're from Mount Pearl or Harbour Breton. They're just looking at us as stupid Newfies, but we looked at each other as like subclasses within the Newfie class. So there was animosity that way. But we look at each other, I guess we're looking for ways to elevate ourselves over whoever we can. And when we're at sort of like the bottom rung of Canadian society, we look at ourselves as like, okay, I'm going to get a step up over you because I'm a townie, or vice versa. You're a townie, you don't even know how to debate a hook or whatever. You don't know how to, whatever the dismissive thing would be. Maybe I'm looking into it too far. This is what I honestly think it is. Everybody's looking for a step up on somebody, and when you're in the bottom rung of the national society, you look regionally within Newfoundland, and a townie would look down on a Bayman or vice versa for whatever reason, and the end result of that is that we're not nice to each other. Even within Mount Pearl or within whatever community you're in, you're not necessarily comparing yourself to somebody from another town. You're looking at yourself in the town that you're in and trying to elevate yourself, whatever the situation is, whatever the reason was. People in Newfoundland are not that nice to each other. Now, is that unique to Newfoundland? No, but it's particularly pronounced probably because there's a small population in general. And secondly, because there is this expectation where we're supposed to be so friendly. And I can't say this enough, I do believe that generally speaking, most of us are. But you find people that are absolute pricks. And especially when they're in Newfoundland, they guide their prickiness to other Newfoundlanders. And maybe it's the fact that the expectation is here that we're supposed to be so nice to each other, but the reality is that we're here. It hurts so much more, so it feels like we're here. I'm not a psychologist, I don't know, but I do believe there's something to that. So the comment continues, we can also be a jealous bunch, where if you become too successful, you get accused of being uppity and thinking you're better than everyone else. Man, like, this guy keeps coming with all the hits. Now there's examples, particularly I think with those singing competitions, Canadian Idol or whatever they are now, Canada Got Talent, all these competitions where Newfoundlanders get behind the people on these shows like nothing at all. Remember Sexy Rexy back in the day, can't remember his real name, Kelly Loader just recently, shows on TV, Republica Doyle. Doyle's coming out with a new show, I can't remember the name of that show, but he's going to be a cop again. But anyway, people get behind this stuff and it's great. But there's almost like a qualification that needs to be met before Newfoundlanders get behind you and push you. Because if you're doing something good on your own, but you're not considered qualified, whether that's some national stage like Canadian Idol or Canada's Got Talent, the crabs in the barrel come and bring you back down. It's a jealousy thing, it's well known, and if I'm saying anything that's wrong here, please let me know. And if it's not jealousy, it's gossip, and it's kind of the same thing. It's all meant to bring somebody down to your level. And look, man, this whole, are Newfoundlanders friendly? No, we're nosy. Nosy's a nice way to talk about gossiping. It's cutesy, right? But man, this thing can get vicious, especially when you're in a smaller town. I think this is even more noticeable when you're in a smaller community. Now, with all of that said, I'm going to close off with the final paragraph of the comment from Exile NF. And I'm not even going to put in any context in it because it says exactly what I would want to say, with one exception, which I will point out. But here it goes. Having said all that, I still love the island, warts and all. It's a very interesting and beautiful place, full of quirky characters and wonderful natural beauty. I even like the weather. Nope. It just took living on the mainland for 20 plus years for me to realize it. All of it. I agree with all of it, except living on the mainland for 20 plus years myself. I think I like the weather even less than I did because I know that there's more out there and I can never say I like the weather. But that has nothing to do with friendly Newfoundlanders. I just can't stand the wind and the cold. I'm not an outdoors winter guy. No. You can keep the weather, but all that other stuff, all of the problems that we have, all of the individual problems that we have with people not being friendly, I don't really care because I still love the place so much. But at the end of the day, are Newfoundlanders friendly? You decide for yourself. I just put 2 videos together, probably talked for about a half an hour between me and all of the interviewees that I met with. This place is not perfect, but it's lovely. And if you expect rainbows and gumdrops or whatever the expression is, sometimes that's the way it is here, but not always. Keep your eyes open. You can't trust everybody. There are jerks out there. There are people going to try to rip you off, even in Newfoundland. Yes, it's true, but I love the place so much. And it's not for everybody, but if it's for you and you know it. So if you didn't completely hate the video, click that thumbs up button down below, or maybe even consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it, and it really helps the channel. So if you didn't see the first part of this 2-part series, where I'm speaking with a bunch of other people that are sharing their experiences in Newfoundland after moving here from somewhere else, I'll leave it right up here. Please feel free to click on over there and I'll see you there. That's it for now. See you, loves you, bye.